Hello and happy Sunday, everybody. Sorry for those that tried to watch the last video. Had some audio technical difficulties, and I am working on refilming that because you can't hear me talking and you can just see me waving my arms. Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about circadian rhythms 101. You may have heard about circadian rhythms before. I know there's a lot of things on social media that I see about it, specifically like advice telling people to get up early in the morning, get sunlight, avoid screens at night. I think those are some of the basic understanding that a lot of people talk about in terms of circadian rhythm. But really, what a circadian rhythm is that you have a natural clock built within your body. Built within your body and mind, specifically in a part of your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. So the SEN. And the way this whole timekeeper works is that there's specific genes involved, and one of them actually is called the clock gene. But I won't bore you with all those sciencey details. But basically, built within you is a natural timekeeping system, which is really cool, and it helps regulate different systems in your body, which you may or may not have heard about. The biggest that, of course, I'll talk about is sleep, because we talk all about women's sleep health and whole living on this channel. But also, our circadian rhythms can affect our body temperature, because temperature is really important for sleep. And sometimes, I'm sure if you're a woman in midlife who's suffering or having some hot flashes throughout the day and night, the circadian rhythm may or may not be involved in that process as well, something to consider. And also hormonal changes. So growth hormone can be affected by our internal clock. Hormones of fertility, reproduction, and even a risk for breast cancer. Yes, this is true. How do we know this? Well, some of the conditions that I see in my clinical practice, where maybe you don't think of it as a condition, but people who work shift work, they can impact their circadian rhythm and thus impact their reproduction and even their risk for things like cancer. So circadian rhythms are regulated in the part of your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And for most people, it's about 24 hours. Some people have, I think, a little bit prolonged circadian rhythms, and then that can impact their ability to sleep because they have to feel like they sleep later and later. That's really a pretty rare condition. But sleep, our circadian rhythm is really based on light, darkness, and melatonin. So when you do hear someone recommending get up in the morning time, at least within an hour, go outside, get a walk, have your breakfast outside, get those bright lights hitting your eyeballs, because that signal of light going to your retina goes into that part of your brain, that SEN, and tells you, oop, it's time to be awake and alert. Some people have little shifts in their circadian rhythm where they're advanced, where they tend to sleep early, typically elderly people, or delayed, night owl. I have a lot of patients that come and tell me that they're concerned for insomnia. They want to sleep earlier, but really what they have is, delayed sleep-based syndrome where their clock is a little bit shifted. So, one lady that I remember speaking to pretty recently said that after high school, after college, her first job was when she could work 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. And that was really the best schedule for her because she would wake up around, 10 or 11 in the morning. And then her true bedtime was really close to 1 or 2 a.m. in the morning. And now, she lives in a place and her company is in a different time zone. And so her meetings start at 8 o'clock and she's really struggling to get going in the morning and wants to know what she can do about that. And that's how learning about circadian rhythm science can play a role, because it's really the timing of light and darkness that can help. Melatonin also impacts your circadian rhythm. I like to think of melatonin is a natural hormone that's released in the pineal gland in exposure to darkness. Some people pop melatonin, and you may have heard this before, sort of like candy. They think they need more and more and more. But from a clinical medicine sleep standpoint, we use it for shift work, maybe people who are jet lagged or other people who have issues with their circadian rhythm. And it's something that can help maybe pull you towards sleep. It helps regulate different stages of your sleep cycles. If you want to learn more about sleep cycles, check out my sleep basics video. But really, melatonin is the word is called Zeitgeber for German, for environmental cues that affect your sleep and wake cycle. So our circadian rhythms in healthy people, really think of it like keeping us in order, right? Like the conductor of an orchestra telling our hormones, all right, this is when growth hormones should start to rise. All right, this is when our body temperature should start to lower. This is when your hormones of reproduction should start happening. And one of the things to think about, I think I actually had concerns for this when I was trying to have my first child, because I used to work night shift in the hospital. When you work night shift in the hospital, really your circadian rhythm is a little bit messed up. And when you're awake longer, from an evolutionary standpoint, we're really built to survive and reproduce. So if you're up all night, working in a hospital, running codes, I'm sure there was a lot of cortisol that was also impacting my ability to get pregnant. But also your body sort of says, well, you're in the stressful state, you're up all the time. Why should you have a baby? And so I actually cut down on my shifts. I think I was doing maybe 14 a month, maybe a little bit more. And I cut down to like 6 to 8. And I don't want to say instantly that helped. I was also doing things like acupuncture, but I think that helped create a better environment that was more conducive to getting pregnant. And I think that played a huge role as well. So when you think about, I like to talk about sleep inertia. So sometimes people have a hard time getting going in the morning, where they wake up, they're still groggy, and their brainwaves are just really, really slow. One of my favorite things to encourage my patients to do is figure out how much sleep you need. Is it, ideally between 7 to 9, because that's the recommended for adults? Where along that range is your sweet spot? For me, I would say between 8.5. And then can you match that to your internal clock? And then you'll feel the best. Because right, if you're a night owl and you feel most awake at 8 or 9 p.m. and you're trying to wake up at 6 a.m. to get ready for work and drive, it ain't going to work out so well because your brain is still wanting to sleep. So how much sleep do you need? Can you match that to your clock? And some people do have the ability where they work from home or they work sort of asynchronous. They don't have to go to meetings and they can really arrange their social calendar to fit their internal clock. That would be ideal. If you don't, then think about leveraging light, darkness, and melatonin. So typically, a lot of people I see are more night owls rather than in terms of night owls looking to improve their circadian rhythm. And really all it is to get light in the morning time, which depending on where you live in the world, folks in Alaska in the wintertime, or even I think northern parts of New York, it can really impact your ability to get sunlight. And sort of lucky or blessed to work in states like Hawaii and California, where there's a lot of access to natural sunlight. There actually are light boxes that you can purchase online with at least 10,000 lux, where I encourage people to, have that sitting on your desk if you're a desk worker, and have that at least half an hour or 120 minutes. Another option is if you're not stationary, there are little glasses that you can purchase that actually shine bright light into your eye. And this actually helps turn back your clock. Turn back that circadian rhythm to help you fall asleep earlier. And honestly, if you're pretty good about your schedule and your behaviors, about 2 weeks, I've seen people who miraculously, or, like just the power of science, been able to turn their clock back from sleeping at 3 or 4 a.m. to now midnight, which is so much better. The thing about this is please, even on the weekend, you want to be pretty regimented. I'm not super strict, or I'd say 20 minutes. I'd say probably somewhere between half an hour to an hour. And for those of you listening who maybe don't have issues with the circadian clocks, but maybe your kids do, because as kids go through pubescence, right, as they go through puberty, there is a little bit of a shift in the circadian rhythm. Maybe it's habits. A lot of kids are online and people tend to play video games late at night, and that bright light isn't really helpful. But encourage them as much as possible to get enough sunlight in the morning. Go for a walk together. Maybe have your brunch on the patio if you have access to a safe place such as that, where you can get that natural sunlight. It's really, really good for your body. So that's really the short side of circadian rhythms one-on-one. If you are a night owl and you want to sleep earlier, simply get more sunlight in the morning time. Try not to judge yourself that you're a bad sleeper. And if at all possible, if you can rearrange your schedule where you can start work later, that actually is super, super helpful. So I hope you enjoyed this video learning about circadian rhythms and how it can potentially impact your sleep and your overall health. For more, please subscribe and tell your friends. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.